but I thought we would start by just letting both of you speak for a couple of minutes about what you hope to accomplish related to the insurance crisis in Tallahassee this week.
Go ahead. Well, you know, I think first of all the fact that we are having a special session acknowledges that the House and Senate and the governor realize that this is I consider a crisis in Florida. It's not only an insurance crisis, it's really has potential of being an economic crisis, because if citizens in Florida can't afford property insurance, and I think property taxes, I will talk a little bit about property taxes even though that's not in the call for special session. Property insurance and property taxes are two biggest issues that people are talking to us about. We will tackle aggressively the property tax issue during regular session, so we won't spend a lot of time on that today, but I hope the readers and people that are watching my website realize that the House and Senate are completely committed to massive reform in property taxes during the regular session. This week when we go into Tallahassee, what I hope that we can accomplish is that we can create some stability in the market for the private insurers to feel more comfortable coming back to Florida to write insurance. I mean, I hope that's the ultimate goal of where we're headed. Some of the immediate decisions we will make can put, you know, insurance is a risky business. It's all about a calculated risk. And because of the crisis that we're in, the state of Florida is dealing with the same risk and the same kind of decisions, just as if we were an insurance company sitting around a board table making decisions about how we calculate the risk. As an insurance company, the legislatures found itself making a similar kind of decisions about how we approach the immediate future in Florida as well as the long-term future, and more importantly, get the state of Florida out of the insurance business and get insurance, private insurers that should be in the business back here. So that's what I hope we can do. We've got about 6 things we want to accomplish. Some consumer protection, and I'll explain, Senator Gates and I will explain that in a few minutes. Mitigation, that's a big part of what we will talk about this week, are people protecting their homes and making them more secure when we do have hurricanes. The third issue we want to talk about is just the citizens insurance itself. The fourth thing are some federal issues. We'll pass some resolutions to our federal government about some national issues that we think that they need to be a part of. And just the CAP fund, the catastrophic fund that has been created after Hurricane Andrew back in '92 to, again, talk about the risk that is shared and how the taxpayers of Florida is involved in that. So those are really kind of 6 major issues that we'll talk about this week. And the last thing I'll say, and turn it over to Senator Gates, is that I think it's important for us to also keep in mind that property insurance was not an issue. When I ran for this job in 2002, not one forum I went to, not one door I knocked on, not one person I asked for their support said, well, when you get to Tallahassee, want you to fix property insurance. I talk about property taxes a lot, but not property insurance. So I started to think about 4 years later, what happened? Well, we had 8 hurricanes in 4 years, and so as a result of that, anytime you have major storms like we've had, 8 of them in 2 years, it exposes the weaknesses of any kind of industry that you have, and that's exactly what's happened. There's some weaknesses in the industry that's really, we can fault people, but the fault really is the fact that we had unprecedented amount of hurricanes, and as a result we have to respond to that. And so now it's on everyone's mind. It's everywhere you go, from church to out to shopping, out to eat, or just again being among people that you serve across the state. They want to know, how fast can you fix insurance, and I can pay too much taxes on my property taxes. So I think it'll be a very productive week. I'm very optimistic that we'll get to the bottom of some major issues.
I think that crisis is an overworked word, especially by politicians. Crisis is usually the appellation that we gin up whenever we want to do something that otherwise would make people be very upset. But this is a crisis that's defined not by politicians, but it's defined by business owners, by homeowners, by young families, by people on fixed incomes. I was in Pensacola Friday for what I call a neighborhood day. Start the morning early with a talk radio show, and then do a breakfast where people can come if they want, just sit down and talk. And then I did a series of 5 to 15-minute meetings with people all day long. People who otherwise would never have a chance probably to talk with their legislators, certainly wouldn't get to Tallahassee. And then I wound up walking neighborhoods in Precinct 46 until dark, and then met with people after dark. And I will tell you that it was all insurance all the time. It was a consuming issue on everybody's minds. This issue, I think, has hit people harder than any issue that I have ever encountered in 14 years in one kind of public office or another. I was town chairman of Seaside for a couple of years, and I was on the school board for 6 years, superintendent for 6 years, and now a state senator. I've never seen an issue that has hit people as hard and hit people broadly across the spectrum as much as this issue. So it's a crisis, I think, that's defined by people and by their needs and what's happening to them. It's not a manufactured crisis ginned up by politicians. And it took us, you know, as Ray said, 8 named storms in 2 years and $38 billion worth of property damage to get into the fix that we're in. And I don't expect that we'll have a complete solution with 1 week of legislative deliberations. But I agree with Ray that we have to find solutions, not excuses, in dealing with this crisis. And I think we can. I think Ray has outlined the areas that both the Senate and House are working on. Let me mention one other thing, because I know the philosophy of this newspaper, and I think those of you who've covered me and known me for years know my philosophy. Abraham Lincoln said that government should only do for people that which they cannot do for themselves. I think we've reached a point where this is an issue people cannot deal with by themselves. People can't face hurricanes by themselves, and they can't face the consequences of this insurance crisis by themselves. They can't fight insurance companies by themselves. So this is, in my view, one of those circumstances that passes Lincoln's high test, that government will have to do things that people as individuals or even as groups of individuals can't do for themselves. And I will say that this causes philosophical issues. It causes deep questions and sincere and fierce debates about principles of how government ought to operate. And you know, in my experiences, I've talked to people all over Northwest Florida, and Ray and I have had similar conversations with many of the same people. I will say that people are not interested in philosophy lessons. They're not particularly intrigued by long lectures about economic theory, about the free market or government intervention. And some of the most conservative, some of the most anti-government people I know are pounding on the table, demanding that government act, and that government act now. And if anything, that meets Lincoln's test. So I'm approaching the special session not with an open mind, because I don't think you can be open-minded about this crisis. I'm approaching it with a conviction that government must act, and government must act now, to deal with issues that people can't deal with as individuals. To me, the difficulty will be how we use the power of government. Do we use it as a meat axe, or do we use it as a laser? Do we use it to cauterize wounds, or do we use it to slice off limbs? And that will be critical as we go forward and talk about these issues. I'm on the insurance committee, and I've sat through hours.
All freshmen.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't intend to be on the insurance committee, but Ray, my good buddy, when he heard about this crisis, he said, "Let's grind up the fresh meat first." So he got me on the insurance committee. But it's thank you. We won't talk here about how the speaker designate can sort of make anything he wants happen. We won't discuss that today. But I've sat through hours and hours and hours of testimony and debates and discussions that have convinced me that we need to take decisive action. Now, let me just say finally that those who say that we can pass a bill against the effects of hurricanes, I think are naive. And I think